YouTube, how's it going? The GOAT House is back, and today we have an NBA mock draft just a few days after the NBA lottery, where we saw teams win like the T-Wolves, the Bulls, the Hornets, big winners from the lottery, and then maybe the Knicks and the Cavs, big losers. The Warriors were expected to get one, moved down to two. I don't think it's that big of a deal for the Warriors. Obviously, it'd be better if they had one, but it's not a huge loss, and we'll kind of talk about why. But we have full NFL coverage here at the GOAT House. That's what we're known for, and we'll have you covered throughout the whole NFL season. We'll have a couple of these NBA mock drafts as well, and then some winners and losers after the drafts, maybe my big board as well leading up to the draft. It's going to be a lot of fun, even though the COVID situation was overall a really bad situation for sports. We're going to have, in the middle of the NFL season, we're going to have an NBA draft, NBA free agency. It's going to be wild, so that's going to be interesting, But we'll have you covered through all of it. Please subscribe, trying to reach 60K goal soon. Smash that like button if you enjoyed and want more. Check out that Twitter, Instagram. We have a podcast, and then we have bonus content on the Patreon, including access to our fantasy football league. So you're going to want to check that all out. There's a link in the description in the comments for any of that. Let's go on to the mock here. And didn't do any trades. A future mock before the NBA draft may involve trades. We'll kind of touch on the big prospects here and what I find interesting or who could trade here. But I have Anthony Edwards going one. I think pairing him with Jarrett Culver could be big time for Edwards. And you see him listed at small forward there. I'm not really going to list him at a specific position or really small forward. I think he's probably more of a two that's going to take the ball up, but very exciting player. I see glimpses of, maybe a stronger Victor Oladipo. Maybe Oladipo, maybe more of a consistent shooter, but Edwards, I like as a clutch shooter. Obviously, he's the type of player that when the game's on the line, he's very confident in his shot or whatever shot he needs to take. Obviously can be a slasher as well. I think it's a clear cut. He's the number one pick. So I would be surprised if the Timberwolves made this pick without it being Edwards. It could be a trade. I don't think they would. I wouldn't trade him away. You were very fortunate getting this first pick. The T-Wolves are kind of known. The West is going to be loaded next year, absolutely loaded. And they're a team that's kind of on the weaker side, but they have potential here with guys like Culver and then Cat, of course. And they just adding Edwards could be that difference. Maybe not right away, but I think they got to go with this. But like I mentioned, could be a trade only because there's going to be a ton of teams calling, because I think Edwards is the clear-cut best player in this draft, in my opinion. He's that clear-cut impact player. The big men, guys like Wiseman, they're good. Wiseman's a freaky dude, a lot of upside, and it's rare that a big man could be dominant in today's NBA, but when there is a dominant one, that could be a game changer. So that's kind of the argument for Wiseman. But on to the Warriors pick 2. I actually expect possibly a trade here. So the Warriors could end up with Wiseman. It might not be at pick 2. There's rumors they can be in on another superstar, kind of replacing Kevin Durant, who they lost last offseason. So they could be in the market to do that. But like I said, they actually can move back a few spots and take a guy like Wiseman or Okongwu from USC. I think either one would kind of fit what they're looking for. As we sit right now, you got Curry, you got Clay, you got Wiggins, and you got Draymond. Having that big man could actually help them take that next step. So like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the Warriors didn't really, I don't consider big losers for not getting that first pick like they were supposed to. They moved down one spot. Edwards is the best player in the draft. I think the Warriors probably would have traded that because Edwards wouldn't have done them a whole bunch. They could have shipped off Wiggins and played Edwards with Clay and Curry. Very strong possibility. But they're a big man, athletic big man like Wiseman or Okongwu away from being taking that next step, really. So this is a prime situation here. They can either sit at 2 and take one of those 2 big guys I mentioned, or they can trade back. I think the teams trading up, the Hornets, the Bulls, the Cavs, probably not the Cavs, maybe the Pistons. The Pistons are a team, maybe the Knicks. Those teams could be trading up looking to get LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball probably known on most people's boards as the number 2 player in the draft. So right now I have the Hornets taking LaMelo Ball. You wish you would have saw a little more play, a little more action, and maybe maybe a little more from him, playing in the Australian League. Expect him. He was pretty dominant at times. Maybe you expect a little more. The worries about him being, that long point guard. A lot of teams want that. They really want that, but is it really working in today's NBA? Sometimes reminds me of I get glimpses of Michael Carter-Williams, which he was good right off the bat, but and I think a better prospect. So don't get me wrong here, but those long point guards haven't really been working out. So that's just something that may scare teams a little bit. He's got a good jumper, but the actual, doesn't really get off the ground in his jump shot. So could that scare a little bit of teams, kind of nitpicking with the top tier prospects at this point. But I think he's off the board by pick 3. Again, I think somebody that trades up to 2 can definitely take LaMelo Ball. They're probably the second best player in the draft, but kind of circling back to that, these big men are pretty dominant. Wiseman, Okongwu, they're pretty good, and I almost want to say those guys are in contention to being the number 1 player in this draft or the number 2, but the value of the position, how much of an impact do those big men make in today's NBA, and that's kind of what pushes LaMelo Ball up to the number 2 player. The Bulls at pick 4, I have them going with Obi Toppin from Dayton. The only question with him is where is he going to play? Is he going to play the 3, the 4? Does he have the strength to play the 4? Does he have the shooting ability to play the 3? He was a dominant player for Dayton. A guy that played a kind of a big man's role, but you've seen him take the ball up at times as well. Yeah, I guess shooting a little bit of a concern, but another one of those slashers, just dominant attacking the rim. And the Bulls, I think the Bulls would probably get creative with him. I think a lot of the time they would probably go Kobe White, Zach LaVine, and then Obi Toppin, then Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter. Or they could just, use a guy like Wendell in the rotation and then play Obi and Markkanen as their big guys, and then maybe they want to bring Otto Porter back as their 3 perhaps. So I can see them going either way. I also can see them being interested in taking, yes, another guard. They do have a new front office in there, so we'll see. And then playing, similar what the Thunder are doing and what worked for them, playing LaVine, Kobe White, and then adding another guard to play them. They would probably be wanting LaMelo Ball to do that, and they might be just out of reach, but they did climb up from 7 to 4, so that was pretty big for them. Maybe they could trade to go up and get him. The Warriors, I think, could move. Perfect situation for the Warriors if they're actually going to make a pick here in the lottery would be to move back maybe to 4. I think would be the perfect situation. They'd still get Wiseman or Okongwu, exactly what they need, and they would gain picks or something in return. But I got top into the Bulls. I got the Cavs taking Okongwu back, and it's closer than you think between Wiseman and himself. Both freaky guys. They're going to play the 4 or the 5 in today's NBA, probably the 5 position. Both lacking a little bit of shooting, a little bit of the kind of the take over the game, aspect that you want to see in a high draft pick. That much of an impact player. But they're both freaky. They're both lengthy. And they're going to be dominant down low. I think where Wiseman stands out is kind of getting the loose balls or kind of getting the putbacks. They're pretty ridiculous sometimes. I don't know if there's a rare amount of guys that are able to finish some of those putbacks I've seen. Okongwu maybe has more of that high motor down there, will be able to, I guess, be a little more rangy at going and getting the ball than attacking the basket back from where he got that ball. So that's kind of the difference, but they're closer than you think. I wouldn't be surprised if Okongwu went ahead of Wiseman. But I have the Cavs kind of, that we've seen them draft the guards. We've seen them draft Garland last year, Sexton the year before. They're going to use them in creative ways. Porter probably could be their 3 for the future. So they kind of just need a high motor guy, at the big man, one of the big man positions for the future there. Halliburton from Iowa State. I think the Hawks just add more shooting here. I think he plays the 2. Adding more shooting with Trae Young could be key here. They could look to add another big man here to play with John Collins for sure. Maybe that's a bigger need. There's just a lack of here in that situation for the Hawks. So they get the good spot up shooter here in Tyrese Halliburton from Iowa State. The Pistons get Killian Hayes, who was actually from France but played in Germany. Well, actually he was born here, but he lived in France. Born in the United States, I should say, but grew up in France and then played in Germany. Interesting one. A lot of people high on him. Another lengthy, athletic point guard, very young, so a lot of upside. So you hear a lot of scouts talking about how high they are on him, but And he's pretty good. He's got a good, a good runner attacking the basket. He's pretty flashy. There's nothing he's missing really, I should say. He can shoot the three. You wish everything he can do. You wish he can kind of do it better, playing in the against a little bit weaker competition. There's a lot of things, mainly attacking the basket, that he doesn't really do anything. It doesn't mind blow me. It doesn't get me out of my seat about where going against NBA talent, especially right away. I don't think he'll be able to finish the way he did, like he did in Germany. I think there's nothing special about his game in that aspect. Where I think NBA defenders, even though there isn't a whole lot of defense in today's NBA, I just don't think it'll be able to transition right away. I think it's a project. I think he's going to take some time. But again, a weaker draft class, even though I think Anthony Edwards at the top is very strong player prospect. I think teams will take the chance on kind of the project here. But the Pistons could use that point guard of the future. We'll see if they go this route here. Next group of teams here, the Knicks kind of fall down after the lottery, down to pick 8. They could be in the market of trading up, maybe targeting LaMelo Ball. I like Cole Anthony. I think people are sleeping on him a little bit. He missed some games last year when he was in. I thought he was dominant. I think he's a very good creator. He kind of creates for himself. Dribbling is a big part of his game, obviously. Some good moves. Maybe not a crazy good shooter, which from guards teams are looking for these days, so I guess that's the knock on him. I think he should go, especially in this draft class, I think he should go in the lottery, a top prospect coming out of high school. The Knicks, adding him at the point guard position could be big time for them. Again, they could be trading up, but Anthony should go this high. Okoro from Auburn, another exciting prospect here, can fly to the rim, solid shooter, more mid-range, maybe could improve his shooting game. Wizards, I think the Wizards would be in the market for going best player available at this point. That's why I had them going him. There's rumors they could move Beal, but there's been those rumors from some time. Will we see Wall, and will we see Wall the same again? But I think they're in the market going best player available here either way, which I think could be Okoro, because they've needed bigs, and maybe even a 3 for a long, long time, and they just haven't been in the position to get one. I don't know if there's one worthy of this pick, so it could be a trade back, but I think you just go best player available. The Suns get Tyrese Maxey, a guy that can play the 1, the 2. I think pair him with Devin Booker, and there's rumors about Devin Booker trade. I don't know if that happens. I don't think it does. So you add Maxey in there, who's pretty good from Kentucky, can rack up some points. Avdija from Israel, I've seen going higher than this, earlier than this. I don't know if that happens. I'm not really sold on that happening. He could. Maybe teams are in on the foreign players because they worked out recently. We've seen a cold stretch for a while. The Spurs are a team I think would definitely take a chance, especially around pick 11. I think he's a pretty inconsistent player from what I've seen, and he's played, the weaker competition. He's gotten a lot stronger that I've noticed over the last couple years, and has been really an icon in Israel too. And it's another one of those guys that he has kind of everything to his game, but nothing is extremely strong to his game. Free throw percentage kind of disappointed me a little bit. It's in the 50s there, so that's a little disappointing. Will he play the 2? Will he play the 3? That's kind of the question. I've seen him as high as 4. I don't think he goes that high, though. Jalen Smith for the Kings, adding a dominant big, I think, with Marvin Bagley could be key because they have the guards kind of settled here. Jalen Smith, I think, pretty underrated. Nobody's really talking about him. I think he'll go in the lottery range. He's improved his shooting this past year for Maryland, kind of a freaky guy. We've already known that. Kind of a freaky guy, down low, but he's kind of adding a little bit of a jump shot to his game. So I like that a lot. So that's a guy to look out for, to be kind of a sneaky guy to go earlier than you think. Saddiq Bey for the Pelicans, a guy that can probably play the 3, probably rotation guy. As we get down here, you can't really expect guys that are going to start right away. Isaiah Stewart for the Celtics, I would like, adding, they don't really have any needs besides center, I think. And this guy was a top tier high school prospect who went to Washington here, so they can add and get better at the center position here in the near future. So a guy that can actually find his way on the court. Speaking of top tier prospect, RJ Hampton, was a top-tier prospect and was expected to be a top-tier NBA draft prospect, has really calmed down. Again, didn't get to see too much of him in New Zealand, so that was unfortunate as well. So that's one of those tough ones. It's really tough to see where he'll actually go, what range he'll actually go, just because the lack of how much we've seen him in the competition. And he was supposed to be a top-tier high school he was a top-tier high school prospect. So some teams will base things off what they saw this past year for a lot of these guys, and some teams will just forget about that and kind of just base things off the high school level, which they've always done. So this is where it gets interesting. I'm just kind of gonna highlight some players that I want to talk about. Patrick Williams. Some of these Florida State guys could go higher than we think. Trey Jones could be a steal down here. The T-Wolves add a little more scoring there at that point, which they need to go all in on just points, scoring, to compete in the West. Aaron Naismith from Vanderbilt's another one that put up a lot of points, so he's another one that can go earlier. Vernon Carey from Duke, was a high prospect, highly ranked prospects out of high school as a big man there. Same with Nico Mannion from Arizona. At this time last year, there was expectations he would go in the lottery. Another one of the Florida State guys. Another high valued prospect out of high school, Jaden McDaniels, who went to Washington. So these guys, the Washington guys, kind of lost their stock. Not lost it, but their stock has calmed down a little bit since where we thought they would be, maybe a year ago. But the Nuggets could add a 4 there in McDaniels. Could have a lot of upside. Could lose Millsap, of course. Other guys I want to, kind of talk about. Miles Powell from Seton Hall was pretty dominant for them, pretty flashy for them. It was kind of on him to get that last shot or to go on that run, scoring-wise for Seton Hall. So the Celtics always have a ton of picks, so they could just look to add the high upside guys that could be solid scorers. I like Cassius Winston with the Lakers. When maybe LeBron's off the court, get an actual point guard, floor general in there in the rotation. I thought that made a lot of sense. He does everything well. He doesn't do anything like very strong at an extremely high level. They're more athletic guys too, so that's why he kind of falls down to this range. I think the Raptors, who pick right after the Lakers, I think they would be in on a guy like Cassius Winston as well. So those are the two teams to look out for Cassius Winston, a kind of a high-profile guy, likable guy for sure, and a key piece to Michigan State. But in the Memphis forward there for another pick for the Celtics was also another high valued prospect out of high school. So some of these Memphis guys can go pretty early. So I just want to touch on a few guys there. We can do this again closer to the draft, maybe with some trades. I touched on who I think could trade. That's what I'm looking forward to. There's already people kind of throwing in big name current NBA players with the trades. I don't think that many. Maybe one could happen. But maybe people are getting a little carried away. But I do think, it starts with the Warriors. Really, it starts with the T-Wolves at the top there. I think teams are going to be dying to get Anthony Edwards because he is by far the most impactful prospect in this draft, by far number one here. You would say, maybe a guy like Wiseman is pretty close, but you look at the value of the position, Edwards is a takeover type of guy. So teams are going to be fighting to get that clear top prospect. I don't think the Timberwolves budge, though. So then you go to 2. I think the Warriors could move back and still get a win situation, which would be Wiseman or Okongwu. But again, there is a pretty big drop-off of the big guys, and some teams could use one right away, so there could be teams fighting over those guys as well, but not really in that 2 range. I think teams could be fighting for LaMelo at that number 2 pick. So it's going to be interesting to see that and the route that the teams want to go. Do the teams just want to go with a bunch of point guards out there? Do the teams want to just get better where they have that last hole at? I'm a Bulls fan, so I'm very curious to see what they're going to do at 4. Do they want to add yet another guard to pair with LaVine and Kobe White? That's very possible. Or do they want to kind of fill that last hole, which is probably the 3 spot. They do have Otto Porter, who's a good shooter when he's in there, but is he the answer? And he hasn't really been healthier in there, too. So some things I'm curious to see. A lot of rumors about trades. Even I mentioned the Bulls. The Bulls could trade some guys off. I've heard, Devin Booker trade rumors, stuff like that. So unlikely, but it's definitely things to look out for. The Knicks, too, couldn't catch a break. What will they do there? What would they like to add to pair with RJ Barrett? Be interesting for sure. So I'm excited about the NBA draft. We'll do more videos in the future, but full NFL coverage here, of course, so you're going to want to join us for that. Please subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Smash that like button if you enjoyed. That is going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.